Okay. Um, I'm just gonna wait for some folks to join. This is like my first ever live chat. So I'm like learning as I'm going. Oh, I see we have Brittany Bundles in the chat. Hi, Brittany. Welcome. Mm, I'll wait for other folks before I start it, but it's like the first of me and a few that come down here to share like what we're working on, and it's also like a way to force me to finish my work and like actually share. I'm planning to do this weekly on Fridays, still figuring out the time. And I would explain more, join, I would say. Live is a little nerve wracking than uh, re- uploading pre recorded. You can like pause and redo things and like it's like people are live. So hope you can like hear me okay and the sound is good. Just hop into it and ask people, then I can re explain it to them. But basically, this series is called What's on My Page, and it's a live series where I come down here and I share um, what I'm working on. Um, Here comes my cat to join me. This is Malcolm. He likes to interrupt me whenever I'm doing things or whenever I'm like doing something that's not focused on him, then he has to come and be a part of it. So I don't know if he has something to say. I don't think so. I think he just wants to be in the mix. But anyways, so the format of this live session is just kind of like a live brainstorming session where I will come down and share what's currently what I'm currently working on, like where I'm currently at. And the goal of it is for me to share or finish like four short stories over the course of these next 8 weeks. And like I thought I should start this because I want to hold myself accountable to finish my work. And then I also want to get over this fear of not being good enough because I've been asking myself like why am I starting these short stories and not finishing them? And it's because I'm like, okay, like I'm afraid that they're not going to be good enough. So I just like start but don't finish. But um and Malcolm keeps messing with my mic, so I hope you can still hear me. But um I constantly repeat this quote from Octavia Butler where she basically says, in order to, and I'm not like directly quoting her, but she basically says, like, in order to get good, you have to do the bad stuff. So, um, just gonna finish my work, whether it's good or bad, just knowing that that's a part of the journey. And I want to kind of actually put that into action. I guess Malcolm is just going to stay here and we can talk together. He doesn't have anything to add but some purrs. I don't know if the microphone is picking up on that. Um, but yeah. So I also kind of got this idea from Dochi because she did this thing called like Coven Music Series where like every week she would share a new song. And that was her way of like getting comfortable with being seen, which is kind of my way of like getting comfortable with my work being seen, getting comfortable with like sharing things that are not necessarily good and like not caring if they're good, but just wanting to finish them. Um, and I invite you all to like join me on this journey of facing my fear. And I really hope that like along the way we are building a community where we all can share our works in progress. Because like this space won't just be for me to share and to brainstorm, but it's for everyone who joins the live to share and brainstorm. And yes, Malcolm is here in the live. Um, I don't think he has a concept of YouTube and going live, but he wants to be a part of it. Maybe he has some things to share as well. I don't know because I haven't figured out how to teach him English or to learn how to speak his language. But yeah, I'm just inviting you all on this journey with me, and please do like get in the comments and share with me like what you're working on, or like if there's anything that you're kind of pushing yourself to like face. Like, is there a fear you're pushing yourself to face and overcome? Um, and I also just want to share a little bit because this is a live brainstorming session. So I want to share a little bit about what I'm currently working on. And as I'm getting started as a writer and like taking my writing more seriously, I'm focusing on writing short stories. Like long term, I do want to write novels, but I figure short story is like a smaller container to like start something from beginning to end and to like continuously improve through like this short story format. Because I mean, a novel can take years, but a short story can just take a couple of weeks or a day or whatever. So I'm focusing on writing short stories and I want to write sci-fi. So I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate sci-fi into a short story format, which I'm sure it can be done. I just have never done it. Um, and one of the questions that I'm kind of working through or like exploring in the current story I'm working on is, or at least the concept of how like we have to conform in this society to kind of be accepted and get ahead. And like if we're told that like if we put ourselves in the box that society places us in, we do the things that we're supposed to do, but like we don't step outside of that, then we will be successful. We will, have whatever the life that they tell us that we're supposed to have as long as we follow these certain steps. Um, but that conformity also comes at a cost of like giving up parts of ourselves because like the standard in the society, at least in the Western world, is to be like white, male, heterosexual, Christian, then able bodied, and like depending on how many identities that you have outside of that, you have to conform in other ways to continue to be accepted. So the main character is kind of going through that struggle where she has given up so many parts of herself to be accepted. And the working title that I have is called Dreaming in Color. And she basically is going to be like prompted to step outside of this box through her dreams. And her dreams are going to kind of like her dream world is going to shape her waking world. And then I also want to like explore the sci-fi element of it all and kind of exaggerate through the use of like sci-fi elements the way our society is set up, where if you follow a certain set of rules, you check certain boxes, and you have access to better things in life. Um, so I want that to be exaggerated to really drive the point home. But I want the main character to kind of go through a journey where she realizes that there is something on the other side of this conformity that she can be herself. Um, and I'm still working through like doing the world building and like building out the character. But that is what I'm currently working on. That's what's currently on my page. And the goal with this series is that I like, for example, this is like the start of it, and I've shared with you what I'm currently working on. And then next week, I hope to share a few paragraphs of what I've like the progress I've made. And then the following week, I want to share like the full story. And I think I'm going to do that through Substack. It's like I'm not sure if you've heard of Substack, but it's like a newsletter type of thing where if you sign up with your email, you'll get a newsletter from whoever's making the newsletter. In this case, it'll be me. And it's going to be through those newsletters that I share my writing and whatever else that's going on over at Creative Birthright. Um, yeah, so that's what I'm currently working on, and then, like in the next week or so, I'm hoping to more like flesh out what the world looks like that this person lives in, and how to better incorporate like sci-fi elements and figure out like all the other supporting characters. I have a few in mind, but I haven't fleshed those out completely yet. So I'm curious to hear from you all in the chat if there's anything else, if there's anything that you're currently working on, like any creative projects that you're working on, or that you're stuck on, or you have questions about, or if you have any thoughts about what I shared about like kind of the focus of my story. Do you feel like you have to conform? Does this like resonate for you in terms of like figuring out a balance between being yourself and then like fitting into society? And I think I might be realizing now that there's kind of a delay between when I speak and when you all hear me. So I'm like waiting for a response immediately as I ask a question. I'm like, wait, they haven't actually gotten the question yet. So I guess that's a part of like figuring out how lives work. Um, Still learning. And another thing that I'm thinking through, like not necessarily about what I'm writing, but like just this whole live format is like the best day to go live. So I'm gonna try Fridays for a couple of weeks, but then I might switch it to Sunday if that's easier for folks to like tune in and be engaged. Because Friday might be like a lot of people getting off of work or like in transit from here to there. Um, then I definitely will give a little bit more heads up in the future. Today, I was just like, okay, I've been thinking to myself, like, oh, I want to start going live and coming up with all these excuses as to why, like, this week is not the week that I can do it. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it today, gonna get it done, test it out. Don't know if people will show up. So I'm grateful for the people that are here. Um, and then just go from there and see how things go. And like I figure I can improve and change things um as things progress. But yeah, this is just the start. Okay. I'm not sure which question. I've asked a few questions. I'm not sure when you joined, but I shared a little bit about what I'm currently working on. So I'll go over that again because one of my questions was related to that. So I'm working on a short story. Um, and as I'm like navigating my writing journey. I'm starting off small with short stories before I like tackle the big novel. So right now, what I'm working on or what's on my page is like figuring out the world building of the story and like all of I have the main character, but I need to figure out who all of the like side characters will be and the supporting characters. But the main character lives in a world much like our own where you have to conform, like you're expected to conform to certain standards of society. And like our society, like the standard is white, male, heterosexual, Christian, straight. Oh, well, that's heterosexual. Able bodied, then, and anything that exists outside of that isn't accepted. So you have to conform in other ways to be able to access certain things. Not everybody has the same access to opportunities, um, jobs, like resources, and who has access to things is based off of whether or not you fit into these boxes that society sets up. So this is the world that the main character is living in, and she has made the choice to conform, and she's actively conforming to the rules of her society. But she, in doing so, she like gives up parts of herself, and she's not like living in her full self. And in this, I kind of want to explore like how to bring dreams into a story. So the catalyst for this change is her dream, um, a series of dreams that she has. So I want to explore like how her dreaming world affects her waking world, and then also explore the process that a person goes through when they are coming out of conforming, when they are going through a process of like reclaiming parts of themselves that they have tucked away, that they have been ashamed of, that they have been told that they should not um, embody. So I want to explore that process. And of course, because I love sci fi and I want to write sci fi, I'm going to add some sci fi elements to it, in a way to kind of like exaggerate and kind of put a spotlight on how our society functions in this way. So I'm still working out what the different sci-fi elements will look like, but I'm thinking like maybe like there'll be like different, like you literally won't have access to certain parts of the certain parts of like the city or the country that she lives in unless you like meet certain boxes. So like you have to have an access pass to go pass through certain areas, and like if you are in X category, then you get to go to the nicest part. Um, so I'm still working through what that will look like in terms of like incorporating the sci-fi elements. But my question, well, at least one of my first questions was just around if you all had any thoughts about that concept, if that is something that resonates for you, like do you see how that shows up in our current day-to-day life or not? So yeah, that's just my first question. Um, and then like the broader question, because these sessions are meant to be brainstorming sessions for myself and a way for me to kind of get comfortable with being seen, get comfortable with putting my work out there, get comfortable with the idea that some of the things that I make will not be good. But that's okay because that's a part of the journey. So these are brainstorming sessions for myself, but then also for anyone who joins the live. Like if there's something that you're working through, if there's something that maybe you're like an idea that you're a little afraid of, not sure how it's going to land, like this is a space to just share it and work through it. And we can like face any of our fears around putting our work out there and having our work be seen together. And then also just kind of brainstorm and see what we come up with. Because I'm a firm believer that like creativity is something that shouldn't happen in a silo, like it should happen in community, because in speaking with other people, your brain or your mind will unlock things that, like, if you're just thinking to yourself, you will not, um, you will not like, you know, think of it. Like someone can say something that just like brings something to mind and can take your idea in a whole nother direction, or will bring a perspective that you just will never have because you're not that person. And I do see a question in the chat. So next week, I do want to share a little bit about this short story. Um, when I come back for my live next week, I'll share what I've worked on so far, maybe like a paragraph or two. But then the following week, um, my plan is to set up a Substack. So I'll share the full short story once I get it finished. Um, and I'll share that via my Substack. And that will be like kind of um, how I will share my work moving forward is through Substack. So I'll share the link to my Substack once I have it set up. um, and basically, if you're not familiar with Substack, it's basically a platform that allows people to set up their own personal newsletters. So just with your, if you like sign up with your email, you'll get to your email at whatever cadence I select, which may be like every 2 weeks or once a month, a newsletter. And in that newsletter, I'll probably include, well, I will include all of my finished works, and as well as like maybe highlight some of my videos or whatever I'm like thinking about at that time, or whatever news I have coming up. Um, hmm. I'm just reading this question here. Yes, I definitely want to have other characters. Definitely going to have a few antagonists. Um, I don't know if I want to have a love interest because the story is like more so focused on the person and her journey to be the most expansive version of herself, and like to reintegrate all the parts of herself that she either like is ashamed of or was taught to be ashamed of and like has repressed and put away. So like I want the focus to be on her like reconnecting with herself. Um and maybe that's the love story. Um and I'm not sure. I've never like written anything that's funny per se, but I may. That's a good thing to maybe put in there. Um I personally have a bit of a dry humor, so maybe that will come through. But thank you for those comments. Um, and I already have some ideas for some other characters. Like I want to have somebody who is the complete opposite of her, who is basically existing in as their full self, who has accepted that she's not going to be able to access like the best parts of the city and lives like on the outer bounds and is okay with that. And this is like a person that the main character knew as a child, and then they went their separate ways and they went in completely different directions. So that person is going to kind of show them like this is an example of how you could be. And then there will be people like pulling her back and saying no, like the way things are set up is how it's supposed to be. Because what I'm thinking is that there'll be like a main area where like it's the best part of the city, where you only gain access to it if you are conforming. And there's certain criteria that you have to meet, and like every year it's kind of like you go through a review process where it's like okay, yes or no. So the way I'm thinking is like okay, so there's that inner part and then there's like an outer part of folks who want to make it into the inner part, and that's where these two characters met. And the main character, her parents like did what needed to be done to move into the better part of town, and that was always her focus because her family was very focused on that, and that was their kind of value set. And then the other person, their her family's value set was completely different, and they moved further out, and they completely lost touch with each other. So all the main character knows is like this like outer part that's like right outside of the main area, and I don't have names for these places, so it's kind of hard to like explain it and take it out of my head if I can't like name it, which might be easier for you all to follow. But like there's like this inner part, this immediate outer part, and then this further outer part that people think is just like this uncivilized place where like there's all this crime happening, blah blah blah. um and like in the immediate outer part, people are struggling, not struggling as bad, but like struggling enough to like want to get to the inner circle. um so I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but basically, um she will be able to see like someone living outside of that, but of course like people in her immediate family who have bought into this way of life are going to keep trying to pull her back. And then I'm still thinking through like what the sci-fi elements will look like for that. Hmm. Okay, so it says another thing in the chat is that character who is her full self sounds like a possible deuteragonist. Um, I haven't thought of it in that way quite yet. Um, I don't see like her full self as separate from her. Like all of those parts exist. She just is not accessing them. It's like if you live in a house and you have certain rooms that you shut the door and you don't go in them, like those rooms are there. You just never visit them. So like she's gonna like open those doors and like live in the fullness of that space. But next week I plan to have like more like fully thought out. And of course, I'm going to share a few paragraphs, maybe like the start of it, because like the way I want to start it is like her waking up from a dream. Um, and in that dream, she's like living in her full self, and that scares her. So like it's a nightmare, and like she wakes up and she's like what happened? And she's a person that like writes down her dreams, so like she writes it out, and she's like trying to figure out why that was scary for her. So I'll share that next week. But I also, because this is a shared space for brainstorming, I'm curious if there's anything anyone else is currently working on, like any creative projects. Um, and a creative project doesn't have to be like writing or painting or like anything that's like considered as a traditional creative medium. Like, are you doing any DIY stuff? Are you planning to try a new recipe? Like, is there anything that you are going to be using like your creative muscle to explore? And if so, please do share it in the chat and like we can brainstorm around it together. And if not, that's completely okay. I hope though in like future live streams that you all will have things to share. Um, because like I said, I think creativity is best in community. And we can be our best creative selves if we are creating with others. But that's really, unless there are any other thoughts or questions or ideas, that's all I had for today. Um, I will make sure to post in advance the timing for when I go live next. I'm still trying to figure out what's the best time for folks to be, engaged. So I might try another day next week, or maybe I'll just stick with Friday and like try it out a couple of more times. But thank you so much for joining. This is like the first Creative Birthright live, so you all are a part of history. But yeah, thanks for joining, and I hope